Our market masters for today. We have two market masters, Dharmesh Mehta, Deputy CEO of Axis Capital, and Nandan Chakraborty, MD Institutional Equity Research at Axis Capital, join us. This is from the sidelines of the Axis Capital India 2020 Stars Conference, which kicks off today. So just to give you a sense, they have over 100 companies and 500 funds that have registered. More than 1,700 one-to-one meetings are lined up over the next 2 days. And they have influential keynote speakers like Piyush Goyal, the Minister of Power and Coal. Gentlemen, morning to both of you. And thank you for joining us. I think there's some issue with Dharmesh's audio, so I'm just going to go across to Nandan first. Nandan, hi, good morning. It's been great times for Indian equities, and now at 28,000 on the Sensex. How are you feeling about this market? Is this still a buy on every dip, whatever dip you get? Or do you think at this point the market is looking for something more from the government's end to take the next boost on the upside?
See, there are 2 points. One is the world is fragile. So obviously, the more the fragile the world gets, the more liquidity that places like the EMs and so on get. So one has to be a bit circumspect about the volumes of money that should be put, etc. Having said that, while there are certain times to put in money, there are certain times to differentiate between sectors and differentiate between stocks, which is precisely the reason why we're having a conference at this time. If you look at the results this time, within virtually every sector, there has been a winner and there's been a loser. And obviously we're in a sweet spot. You have very few countries around the world have an 18% EPS growth coming, obviously off a base. But 18% is a great number. So I think one has to be circumspect, and at the same time one has to choose stocks specifically, which is why we have a very wide retinue of different types of spectrum of different types of sectors which are represented here, from early cyclicals like banking and consumer derivatives right up till power, coal and so on.
Well, Nandan, the point is taken, but before I get Dharmesh into this conversation, let me just finish this argument. I'm reading your Hand of God, India Grasps the Hand of God report. And yeah, the combination of positive circumstances is unbelievable. Crude oil, GDP base likely to be revised for the better. The rainfall is not a deficit after all, if you looked at the Kharif crop. All that is taken. But, sometimes the turn in the economy can take a very long time. Remember the previous NDA government efforts started. It was a long downturn, and only in the last year of the NDA government we saw the growth ticking up. Is there a chance that this time as well, it may not get worse, but it may take a long time to get better? It may not happen in, say, the April quarter of next year, which is where a lot of people are pinning their hopes, even if the fourth quarter is a washout. What if that doesn't happen? Are we likely to see some, big negativity from foreign investors?
Okay, let me give you a short answer and a slightly long answer too, because I love both. So the short answer is, I think by the time of the budget, you will have a little bit greater clarity, because you see what Prime Minister Modi is doing. He's getting some of the best people that he's seen across spectrum, across from different political parties. People like Piyush Goyal, people like Mr. Suresh Prabhu, people like Mr. Parikar. I mean, lots of them. So he's getting very good people at the center to see that our key issues are resolved. So I think you should give them a little bit of time till the budget to see, when there will be unity among the states to get the GST working, for example. Plus, to get, the various reforms. And you see the reforms are not so much about intractable problems in India, but they are more about coordination. So I think this coordination is what this government gives. Now, a little bit of the long answer, yes, the world is fragile, so one has to be careful, and therefore I think that one has to be choosy in stocks.
Okay, well, point taken. I will be speaking to both of you about stocks as well. Dharmesh, first a little bit about your conference itself. A year ago when we spoke to your team, I think probably the same day last year, there was already a bit of a cheer, expectations that the NDA would do better than most people had thought were beginning to creep in. I remember it was only by December 4th when the state's results came that the tide actually turned, but still the cheer was there. How much better is it now? What exactly are the FIs telling you? Did the same number of people respond? Did more people respond? From the quality, quantity and feel in your conference, what is the sense you're getting?
And obviously the response has been fabulous, especially where India is today in the global emerging markets. So there is a lot of euphoria, there is a lot of optimism, and there is a lot of expectation for, for India in the current scenario. And as you can see my face, it's all blown up. You can understand how much amount of work is going on behind the conference to get everybody's one-on-one meetings done and the main tracks getting done. But bottom line is, I think so India is in a sweet spot, and I don't think so I've ever seen better circumstances for India what it is in today.
Okay. Dharmesh, hi, good morning. That's actually a very optimistic note that we started off with. I was just going through a report where you've done a detailed study on the urban recovery theme and how pricing power is returning to the consumer. How do you really play this theme now in terms of stocks? Do you look at spaces like autos? Do you look at spaces like FMCG? What's the strategy here?
Well, I think so it's purely you're going to play the, ancillaries of whatever happens in the consumption. So banking, media, autos, a lot of those kind of names. And I think there's still more of a sentiment which has changed. The actual spend is yet to come into the economy, which is just kicked off right now as we did a survey. Nandan and his entire team flew all over India and did that survey. So what we are seeing is that people are now ready to spend, which they were not able to do in the last 2-3 years because of bad sentiments, not because they didn't have money to spend. So I think that will flow down definitely to all the ancillaries of consumption. So maybe consumer durables may not be the one which you are buying right now because of the valuations, but all the other stocks which will be consumed by India, I think so those kind of names will do very well. And there are tons of those kind of stocks.
Okay, Nandan, some of those names, I think in your report you begin by saying banks and auto sectors will be the prime beneficiaries. Take us through some names first in the financials. What will be the pecking order? Will you want to look at PSU banks now if you have a certain certainty about both the interest rate as well as the economy turning?
So see, interest rates are almost bound to fall. The question is whether they'll fall in the first quarter of the next calendar year or later. I don't think anybody is expecting it to come in the current policy. Question is, obviously, if interest rates go down, the prime beneficiaries will be those which are more levered to the economy among the large private banks as well as some of the PSU banks. The issue in PSU banks is while they are a beneficiary of interest rates, they also have certain issues which are yet to be resolved. Hopefully, once this coal thing is resolved, the standard assets issue is resolved. But I don't want to talk too much because we have Mr. Piyush Goyal who will probably, in a way, indirectly answer about the PSU banking sector. And he's our the Honorable Minister is our first speaker.
In fact, that was the next question I was coming to. Dharmesh, what's the sense you're getting about the coal and power sector reforms since you do have Piyush Goyal speaking at your conference? And how would you approach sectors like this now?
Well, obviously, the government has made their intention very clear that they want to get around this entire mess and ensure that, the people who have invested money in this sector, start investing in further plans which they have stopped because they are not clear on what's going to happen to the coal block allocations. So we're expecting that the auctions and all should start taking, should be much earlier than what people expect. And I think so one has to look at the intention of the government more than the action right now, because the very clear action can take some time because of legal issues and all that. But the intention is very clear, is to get back the sectors on the track and ensure that the money starts coming in, investing in this kind of sectors, which is very, very important for the India's economic growth. And the entire 8% or 6% growth what people are now talking about is going to be dependent on what they do on these two sectors. And there are a lot of stocks which you can play, but obviously there's a lot of uncertainty which is around that, and the stocks will keep on reacting based on what announcements keep on coming.
Well, you didn't complete my answer, Nandan. Anything specific that you like in the PSU space, in the NBFC space, private sector? What is the hierarchy? Can't you name names?
So I can't name names, okay, because I'm a part of one of them, which I like.
Okay.
And,
you can name in PSUs and NBFCs.
Private sector. Yeah, so private sector has to be number one because they are, they are the giants which are, taking market share. So that's the obvious one. After the private sector comes the PSU banks and the NBFCs, and between the two, NBFCs have, while they have a better valuation, there is some optical risk because of the recent regulations. But having said that, in any cycle, obviously, the growth stories come from NBFCs rather than the PSU banks. Having said that, again, in an early cycle, the PSUs do better. So I think for PSUs, I think one has to be a little more circumspect and wait a little bit till, the reforms are a bit, underway.
Dharmesh, as a part of your speaker list, you have Akhil Gupta as well. Telecom is a sector that has not really outperformed this year. What's the sense you're getting about the next 6 to 12 months and how much telecom could start to participate?
Well, stocks like Bharti and a lot of them, Infratel, have outperformed the markets in a big way. But I think so, again, that also is dependent on what happens on the spectrum auctions, what kind of money these people are supposed to invest to get their, licenses or get an extra spectrum from the government. And based on that news, it will keep on reacting accordingly. But as I said, the power is coming back to the consumer. So obviously people like us or anyone else is going to spend more and more on telecom, especially with data coming in a big way, 3G and 4G in play. Now people are going to spend more money. So I believe the telecom companies should also do very well in the longer term perspective.
Okay. I noticed there are a lot of South-based cement companies in your list. Dharmesh, would you want to take that? You have India Cements, Ramco Cements are as big beneficiaries. Also, of course, Dalmia, JK.
Well, obviously people want to meet cement companies because they are a way to play the India growth story, because you don't have directly any large companies in infrastructure space currently today without their leverage issues and all. Hence people are trying to play this theme via the cement companies, and that's the reason we have a lot of the cement companies which investors are dying to meet today.
Okay, Nandan, I wanted to ask you about the consumption theme more. You did speak about autos being one way to play it. What else would it be? I mean, would you buy any of the retail formats? Would you buy, any of the, Titan, the discretionary sales variety? What's your pick in terms of the entire consumption basket?
See, what typically happens when the economy recovers is, first, the discretionary spend goes up. After that comes FMCG. So it's obviously that all forms of discretionary spend will go up. Number two is the discretionary spend players also expand. So you have a double benefit of that. Prior to that, the banking sector improves because of sentiments, because their balance sheet and their profit and loss improves. So I would play banking, and after that I would play consumer discretionary. But having said that, every year has a retrospective multi-bagger.
Okay.
So let's say, year before last it was agriculture. Last year it was logistics. Okay. I think this year it will be, infrastructure, EPC, companies like that. Now, which of these? Well, attend our conference and you'll meet a lot of companies, and then we'll figure out which ones. But I think there's where the multi-baggers come from, and it's usually in retrospect that you know which one. Otherwise, everybody would have put their money in that one or two stocks. But I think that's where, the searching for multi-baggers comes from. And also remember that, when Dharmesh talked about cement, that a couple of the larger companies are in a grey period, so we have not mentioned them in our report. So they're also equally important. South India specifically is a completely different dynamic from North India. North India is the one where over the longer term, you will have a great amount of, these industrial corridors and so on. So I think there's a lot of stuff which will happen in North India also, apart from South, which is, sort of coming out of its capacity utilization problems.
All right. I guess we will have to let you all go back and welcome all your tall guests. You have a bunch of guests coming there. Piyush Goyal, one you mentioned, Mr. Mundra from the RBI is there, and I guess he will be ambushed by a lot of people.
Mr. Sikka is also coming.
Yes, we heard
Mr.
about
Sikka also.
Yes, Vishal Sikka. We were told about Vishal Sikka, and we'll try and get a slice of your conversation with him on our channel as well. Thank you very much, Dharmesh and Nandan, for joining us, and have a great conference out there. Hope you can come back and give us a synopsis of what you got from the conference.